Welcome, everybody, to the monthly meeting of Take Action San Diego. We do meet once a month, usually on Zoom. And today, our topic is protecting our elections and how you can help. And I think this is what is on a lot of our minds right now. So I think it's a very pertinent topic. It's one that we'll probably continue to talk about over the next few months. But we have three speakers here today to address various aspects of protecting our elections. Holiday Adair from Blue Voter Guide, Kimberly Lange from the San Diego County Registrar of Voters, and Andrea Guerrero from Alliance San Diego. And when they're all finished, just very quickly at the end, I'll offer some last minute thoughts on the California governor's race and also review a few upcoming actions and events that we want to make sure you're aware of. But before we get to our speakers, I did want to just give a minute or two of context to today's meeting and maybe even future discussions we're going to have, because you all know that the last few weeks have been devastating for people who are concerned about voting rights and about democracy writ large. And the Supreme Court decisions, the state of Virginia decisions, and everything that's happened since show what we kind of already knew anyway, that Republicans are worried that the only way they can win an election is if they rig it. And that is what they've done with a friendly Supreme Court and a friendly president on their side. And it's significant blow. I don't want to underrate that. At the same time, people I trust very much, people from the democracy docket, and people like the Pod Save America guys like Dan Pfeiffer and several others who really do deep analyses, are also saying that even though the situation is dire, we were doing and our candidates were doing so much better than expected, that even with this terrible gerrymandering, we still have a very good chance to at least take back the House, maybe still even the Senate. And a few reasons for that, the two main ones seeming to be that there are still some blue states that may now gerrymander in response. Again, this crazy thing is going to keep happening. But also that the Republicans' gerrymandering may in fact backfire, that Trump's popularity is so poor right now, and so many of the people who voted for him a few years ago have come to their senses, that it may not be as horrible for us in this particular moment, but that doesn't mean that we can't sort of put every ounce of our energy into the upcoming elections, the primary elections, and then, of course, specifically the November elections. And the other thing I want to mention, and you all know about this, is that in April in Hungary, there was a very good moment for Hungary and for the world, and I think for us, because Viktor Orban, who was the prime minister of Hungary, not exactly a dictator, he was elected a few times, but in a system that he had rigged in his favor. He had done that by controlling the private and state media, by re-engineering election practices, by appointing loyalists into government positions, by funneling government funds to reward supportive companies and individuals, and to be very effective at dividing his opposition. He went after immigrants in one way, and LGBTQ community in another, and against international cooperation in another, and sort of pro-Christian nationalism in another, and really managed to keep his opposition divided for many, many years. I don't know if any of this sounds familiar to you, but this has been Trump's playbook, or something very similar to it here. He's a great admirer of Viktor Orban's. Trump, and as you know, J.D. Vance even went to Hungary to campaign for Viktor Orban. The good news, of course, was despite all of that rigging of everything in the country, Viktor Orban was defeated, and not just defeated, but defeated in a landslide that 70% of the parliamentary seats went to the opposition party. And there were a few reasons that that happened. I mean, people were disgusted with Orban by the time this election came about. The inflation, the economy was bad, like it is many places. The corruption of his government was so awful that it became visible even to people who weren't paying that much attention. He lost young voters, partly because their media strategy focused very much on traditional media and very little on social media. And the coalition that formed to defeat Orban was went the spectrum from right wing to left wing and everything in between. And the political parties and the political leaders somehow managed to understand that they had to coalesce despite the many disagreements they had if they were going to get rid of this guy. And they did. And of course, the other main factor was humongous voter turnout. It was about 80%. That was the highest it's been there in decades. So I think a lot of lessons for us on what we need to be doing. And that is some of the things that we're going to be hearing about from our speakers today, who hopefully are going to help us to learn how to vote like Hungarians. So our first speaker is Holiday Adair from Blue Voter Guides. Many of you are probably familiar with it, but Holiday will describe it to you. But certainly one of the ways to get voters out to vote is to keep them informed and to make it as easy as possible. And I think Holiday is going to tell you exactly how that happens. Holiday, I'm going to turn it over to you. Do you want to use slides?
Yes.
Okay, so let me stop sharing my screen. Okay, welcome, Holiday, and thanks for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm very excited to talk to you about Blue Voter Guide. So let me share my screen. So what we're looking at is a small portion of my sister's ballot. She lives in North Park, San Diego. So I put her address in and generated a ballot from the user's perspective. The philosophy behind Blue Voter Guide is to address the fact that a lot of people won't vote or won't vote down ballot because they lack the confidence in what they're doing. They don't have enough information. They don't want to vote for the wrong person. And by that, they mean somebody who won't represent their values once they gain the seat. And so the logic is that if we give people the information on who is endorsing these candidates, that would be a fast way of assessing the candidate's values. So a person who finds that climate, reproductive rights, union rights, social justice are important to them, they can scan the candidates and see which organizations have already vetted these candidates on those issues. And as you can see for the U.S. representative in District 51, Sarah Jacobs has like 32 endorsements from a variety of left-leaning, progressive, liberal, democratic organizations. So I think one of the things to remember about Blue Voter Guide, that unlike the good voter guides that are out there, like the League of Women Voters, Blue Voter Guide is partisan. We are not in any way providing or promoting information about any candidate that is not progressive, democratic, liberal, or left-leaning. So you'll see that in this race, there are two other Democrats who have not received any endorsements. And that could be because they did not pursue them or that those organizations turned them down as not resonating with their values. And that's important to know. But you'll also notice at the bottom of that race, there is a place where it says Republican candidates. When a user clicks on the caret, that will open up a menu of names of Republicans who are running. The names are not clickable. There's no information about them. If they want to know about Republican candidates, first of all, they're not going to be on Blue Voter Guide. And secondly, they're going to have to find that on their own. So we don't bother with that. So Blue Voter Guide did start in California with Wayne Liebman addressing the need for Los Angeles voters to figure out, how can we vote down this multi-page ballot all the way down? And so we've grown since then to covering all 50 states and going as far down ballot as possible, because it is the more local races, I think, in some ways, that people do not have information. So when we scroll down further on the ballot, one of the features is that a person can filter their ballot by issue. And so let's say that you are a climate enthusiast, that workers' rights are important to you. You can click those issues, but notice that Blue Voter Guide is going to tell you then you're only going to see a third of the races that are on your ballot. So one of the things is, to do that first and pick the candidates that, really resonate with your values, and then go back, undo the issues, and see what the rest of the races are all about. A person who is using the guide finds out what these organizations are about. And with some of the titles, it's clear what they are about. But Our Revolution, if you've never heard of that, you're like, well, what's that doing? And so this is for a new generation of progressive leaders. When the user clicks on the organization's name, or actually, I'm sorry, when they hover over the name, they see that brief description. When they click on the endorser, they will actually be taken to the endorsement page of that endorser so that they will see for themselves, yes, these candidates are endorsed by this endorser. One of the features of Blue Voter Guide is that you never have to just take our word for it. Every piece of information that's on the guide is referenced. You are taken to our source by clicking on it. I failed to mention that I put a bunch of links in the chat. There's a link to the website. There's a link to a couple of videos that explain the guide, and there's a link to our volunteer survey if you are enthusiastic about this work at the end of what I'm talking about. So if a person wants to find out about the candidates, they can click on the candidate's name. And I just have Katie Porter up here as a good example of all of the sites that we have about her. You can click on her LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, X, YouTube, her campaign website, and then whatever Ballotpedia has on her. It's also a summary of what her endorsers are about issue-wise. These are not her issues. These are a summary of the types of endorsement that she's gotten. So again, it's kind of a briefer narrative for the user who can say, oh, this candidate speaks to these values of mine. And then a summary of our comments that are under Katie Porter's listing, and then the contact information, if contact information is provided on the candidate. So there's a lot of information just from clicking on Blue Voter Guide to find out about the candidates. We cover candidates in partisan races. We cover candidates in nonpartisan races as well, with the priority of looking for endorsements. So you can see the California Superintendent of Public Instruction. They're also going to have possibly have endorsers listed under their names. You can hover over those organizations to find their mission. You can click on them to visit the website. You can click on the candidates. You can click on the candidate's name to get information about the candidate. However, nonpartisan races.
Could you just read the text?
In nonpartisan races.
Oh, hang on a second, Holiday. Can everyone mute themselves, please, so we can hear Holiday? Thanks.
Sometimes, especially as we get more and more local, and this is actually a county race, where the race is nonpartisan, it becomes difficult to find endorsements so that the voter doesn't know, well, what are my alternatives? And this is not necessarily the best example because Katrina Foley at least had endorsements. But we will have races where none of the candidates have endorsements, and we have searched and searched. So we switch gears a little bit and we start looking for party affiliation or political ideology from a credible source. So Diane Dixon has a comment under her name that claims she's a Republican. But as you'll notice, there is a little reference number here that you can click on to see where we got that information from. And it was from a newspaper. So again, nobody has to take our word for what we are posting. They can look at our sources and see where we're getting that information from. So we not only cover partisan races and nonpartisan races, we cover ballot measures as well. The language changes a little bit from endorsements to recommendations. And because we want to capture organizations that don't endorse candidates, but actually will come out with formal recommendations on ballot measures. A good example of that is League of Women Voters. They will post their recommendations for how to vote on voting related ballot measures. So you'll notice here we have a yes vote. A yes recommendation on the local San Diego vacant homes tax measure. How much has Blue Voter Guide been used in California? Well, not very much from the beginning of the year until mid-April when people were like, ooh, hey, there's an election coming up. I'm getting my mail-in ballot. I better look for information. And then it went up to about 76,000 people in California, with a little bit over 3,000 in San Diego. I'd like to see that increase. So one of my requests or pleas is to spread the word about Blue Voter Guide. And then my last request is to think about volunteering. And we've organized our volunteers by different teams, starting from people who have developed and are improving the website, not only for the users, but for the rest of us volunteers, to make what we do a little bit easier and to make the information a lot easier to access for the users. When it comes to finding information about the races, the elections, and the candidates, where are those races happening? What are those races? Who are running? That is our down ballot and our Medea team. The Medea team is named after an application we use to get the data actually into the website. Once it's there, my team comes in, the endorser research. We're looking for those endorsements. We're looking for party affiliation. If we can't find the endorsements, then there is a social media team that promotes Blue Voter Guide, sharing pre-made posts across platforms so that people are aware that this is a really good source of information for their ballot. We also have partnerships because we seek out partners who will promote us, and we will give them a dedicated URL that if it is used, their organization is listed first under a candidate. They are usually alphabetized. But if, West LA is a partner and a person clicks on their particular URL, West LA will be seen at the top. We have a monthly newsletter for everyone interested in Blue Voter Guide. We are always looking for people with editorial and writing skills. And last but certainly not least is fundraising. Sometimes we have to buy race data sets and they are not cheap. So any interest in any kind of help that you could give us, I've put the survey link where it says the volunteer survey, and it will give you a little bit more descriptions about what each of these teams do. So I do see a hand raised. I'm not sure if I could just call on, I think Dina.
Yeah, hi. This is intriguing that Blue Voter Guide is showing all of the endorsements. So here in San Diego, we have over 50 Democratic clubs throughout the county, both regional clubs that are particular to a community and zip code, as well as affiliated clubs that are like the Environmental Dems or the Women's Democratic Club, and the AAPI Democrats, things like that. So what I thought interesting is our little local club here in PV was listed there as an endorser of one of the candidates that you just showed us. Going forward, does it help down ballot candidates if the clubs endorse them so that they do have content on Blue Voter Guide when voters click on it to gather information before an election?
Yes, especially in nonpartisan races. And so that's a dicey thing, right? In nonpartisan races, depending on where that person is running, they may be hesitant to, come out as a Democrat, so to speak. But my counter argument to that is it's blue voter guide. You've got your poor little Democrats there hiding in that red district going, who am I voting for? Who are the Democrats? I mean, we have gotten emails. Just tell me who the Democrats are. And so to encourage Democratic clubs to at least, even if they don't want to show favoritism in the primary. I know a lot of Democratic clubs are hesitant to, influence a voter, like, pick a Democrat. Well, in a nonpartisan race, they have to know who the Democrats are. So even just on your website, identify the Democrats that are on the ballot. Because the Republicans do that. When I'm doing nonpartisan research, I will go to a GOP county club first because they are always telling you, here are your Republicans. And then I go to the Democratic group and they're like, oh, please vote. It's important to vote. And but for who? So yeah, it would be useful, but I do understand and I sympathize with Dem clubs that are hesitant to do the endorsement. But at least identify the nonpartisan, the Democrats in the nonpartisan race.
Okay, so I'm looking at this issue. Will it still help these candidates if we endorse after the primary?
Yes. Yes, because we then cover them in the general. And then to know, especially again in nonpartisan races, again, to know this is the Democrat. That's very helpful.
Oh, this is great information. Thank you. This is fabulous.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Especially as you say, those special caucuses, like you've got environmental caucus, the Hispanic caucus, those are really helpful.
Great. Okay, good.
Yeah, and as Dina knows, because she's very involved in the Pacific Beach Democratic Club, sometimes the person the club endorses might not be the same one that the county party endorses. And I think people are sometimes very interested to know about that. So I think it's really just getting the word out to clubs that not just that Blue Voter Guide exists, but that Blue Voter Guide's interested in having clubs. And, the reason the PB Democrats are on there is because Larry and I are both in that club. So we need to get out. I'm not joining any more clubs, but we need to get that word out. Are there other questions for Holiday? Good. I was going to say I hadn't seen the links, Holiday, but I see the links now in the chat. I would recommend everybody, first of all, just let your friends know about it. I saw some comments in the chat, Angela and a few others saying that they've shared Blue Voter Guide with friends that have just moved to a new location. It's especially helpful there, or uninvolved people, but who want to make the right vote. Young people, people who are voting for the first time. I think that's a real target for this. But then also to volunteer. There is I don't know how many hundreds of volunteers there are working on this, but just imagine they are targeting every race in the country. So they need all the volunteers they can get, and it's such an important, noble effort. So I encourage people.
I did have 100 volunteers during the presidential year in 2024. I have 15 now. So we are working day and night.
Yes. All right, Holiday. Well, thank you so much. That was great. And I'm so glad to be able to get the word out to people about Blue Voter Guide. That was a very partisan presentation. Our next speaker is not partisan at all. This is Kimberly Lange from the San Diego County Registrar of Voters, but who many of us have partnered with to register voters, to be poll workers, and just to support the incredibly important work they do. So we're so glad to have you here, Kim.
Thanks, Wendy. Good afternoon, everyone. Yes, we are nonpartisan at the Registrar of Voters. The Registrar of Voters administers elections based on California Elections Code. So everything that we do comes from Secretary of State guidance and California Elections Code. So we do not support any candidates. We do not support any ballot measures or any propositions. We simply, and I say simply, it's really not that simple, but we simply administer the elections. And if we're talking about how you can be involved in democracy, one of the greatest ways you can do that is to be a poll worker. And I manage poll worker recruitment at the Register of Voters. I've been doing it for about 4 years now. And for this primary election in June, we have over 2,500 poll workers at vote centers throughout the county. There will be 219 vote centers throughout the county. And then you can also vote at the Register of Voters as well. So we have a huge job ahead of us. And for November, we will recruit even more poll workers than 2,500. We'll probably get up to the 2,700, 2,800 range because we anticipate it being a busier election than the primary. Typically, a lot of voters don't vote in the primary, unfortunately. But we do, based on some data, we think this one will be a busier primary than some primaries in the past. So we are fully staffed at this point for this election. But if anyone is interested in submitting an application to be a poll worker for the November election, I will hold on to that until we start recruiting in August. Probably around the beginning of August, we'll start recruiting for November. And you can find our application on sdvote.com. I can put that in the chat as well. And it's just a real short application. If you've never been a poll worker before in our county, you must submit that application prior to being a poll worker. But if you've been a poll worker, you are most likely in our system. And you may even have gotten an invitation to be part of our elections. So all you need to do to be a poll worker is you need to be 18, you need to be a registered voter in California, or you need to be a legal permanent resident of California to be a poll worker. And we would love to have you. It is one of the greatest ways to understand this aspect of democracy. Poll workers go to 2 days of pretty thorough training to learn all the processes of how the vote center operates. And it's fascinating. If you don't know how the operations work at a vote center, or the mail ballot and ballot drop boxes, going to training is really, it's eye-opening for so many people. So when we talk about, being part of democracy, keeping our democracy alive, that is one way to do it. Wendy also asked if I would talk a little bit about election security, which is a big question. I get calls almost every day, especially from poll workers, asking, how are you keeping us safe? Because there's a lot of noise out there in the world, and social media especially. I will say that, any credible threats that we may receive comes directly from Secretary of State, comes from law enforcement. It does not come from social media. There's so much misinformation out there. And it's really unfortunate because it puts a fear into people who are going to be poll workers, who are going to vote, that is unnecessary. And no one should ever be stopped from feeling safe to go to a vote center. The Registrar of Voters does have protocols in place, emergency protocols. And for this election and for upcoming elections, part of that emergency protocol is also voter interference. I get a lot of questions about what do we do if ICE shows up? And I can assure you that the Registrar of Voters does have an emergency protocol in place for that. We are not anticipating that to happen at our San Diego County vote centers, again, because we have not received any credible source telling us that will happen. So we take your safety, very seriously. We prioritize the safety of our poll workers, of our voters, of our observers, above and beyond everything else. And we are always in contact with Secretary of State and local law enforcement, sheriff's departments, to make sure that everyone is safe at the vote centers. One more thing I'll just add is that if you haven't observed any vote center operations, or if you know someone who's a bit skeptical of what goes on during the election process, we invite everyone to be an observer from start to finish for election operations. Anyone is invited, and this is again according to California Elections Code, anyone is invited to be part of the observation process of vote center operations all elections operations, from the logistics and accuracy testing to the 1% manual tally that we complete after Election Day. You can go to a vote center and be an observer. You can be at the ROV to be an observer. You can follow ballots on their way back to the ROV from a vote center. Everything is observable, and you don't have to sign up. You don't have to schedule an appointment. We are open during business hours every day during the election cycle, and we invite people to come in and get their questions answered. So I feel like that is probably, if we're talking about election security and all the noise about fraudulent activity that goes on, one of the best things we can do is educate ourselves about the operations and how elections are run with the highest integrity. So I think I saw a question in the chat. I'm not sure.
Yeah, there's a few. One is, how are mail-in ballots protected from any interference that might occur from the post office?
Well, again, we don't have any credible threats of the Postal Service, the USPS, interfering with mail ballots getting to the ROV. But we also have other ways that you can drop off your ballot if you don't feel like that is the safest way to turn your ballot in. There are, I think, 155 permanent ballot drop boxes throughout the county. Most of them are outside of libraries, county libraries and city libraries. And those get collected at this point in the election cycle. It's every other day, but then that will switch to every day. Those ballots get collected by a certified ROV team. You can also bring it to the ROV. You can drop your mail ballot off at the ROV. Someone will take it from you. You can also take your mail ballot to a vote center and you can drop it off. Vote centers are open, some of them starting next Saturday. You can drop your mail ballot off at a vote center and it will go into a secure bag and it will come back to the ROV at the end of the night. So if you are feeling a little hesitant to put it in the mail because of all the things that we're hearing, I totally understand, but we do have some other options for you to drop off your mail ballot.
And I've also heard a suggestion, because the postmark is going to be an important part of this, that if you want to make sure you're postmarked on the right date, just go up to the desk in the post office and watch them postmark it before the ballot goes in the mail.
Yeah, watch them postmark it. Again, and just get it in early as well. I mean, I know sometimes it's tradition to vote on election day, and a lot of people have that tradition. But if you're going to vote by mail and you want to put it in the USPS, and what's happened with the ruling of the Supreme Court and the postmarking, just make sure you get it in early. Don't procrastinate with your mail ballot.
No dilly-dallying.
No dilly-dallying. As mine sits in front of me right now.
And Sue wanted to know, and I think this is an important one because our next speaker will be talking about poll watchers, and you talked about poll workers, but maybe you can enlighten us on the distinction.
Sure. So there is a distinction. Poll workers work for the Registrar of Voters office. They're paid volunteers. They're not employees, but they're paid volunteers, and they go through the process with the Registrar of Voters office. Poll watchers typically work on behalf of a candidate, and they are sent out usually on election day, sometimes leading up to election day, to get numbers. You can go to a vote center and you can ask for specific information as a poll watcher, and then that information is used to maybe get out the word that there aren't enough voters based on that candidate. So again, the poll workers are paid volunteers through the Registrar of Voters office, and poll watchers usually work on behalf of a candidate. So it is a bit different. The agenda is different. The intention is different for both. And since I did mention you're a paid volunteer, you do get paid to be a poll worker. It's a stipend payment, and you get paid for every day that you are involved in the election. So it's a win-win for everyone.
All right. And then the final question I'm seeing is, do poll watchers help with ballot curing after Election Day, or is that done by campaigns and other entities?
That I'm actually not sure, to be honest with you. I'm not sure all of the responsibilities of a poll watcher, or if that's included with a poll watcher. I know the ROV does the canvassing after election, so I'm guessing those are two different things.
Yeah, I think it was more, I may have said the wrong word. Do poll workers do any ballot curing activities where, like, if people forgot to sign their envelope or
Oh,
something
okay.
like that?
Poll workers do not. We have teams at the ROV who do that in different departments. Poll workers are not part of that. We do ask some of our poll workers if they want to be part of the 1% manual tally, which is a manual count after election day. But we have departments at the ROV who take care of signature verifications and just a variety of other things.
Great. Great. Well, thank you so much, Kimberly. I think, another part of what gets voter turnout to be larger is when people have trust that their vote's going to get counted and that their vote matters. And that especially the San Diego Registrar of Voters has just been out there very publicly, working with whoever they can, and sort of getting that message across and being as transparent as possible. So really appreciate that. Hope that some people sign up to be poll workers. I know some people in this group already
Mhm.
have.
That's
So
great. I hope to see you out on election day. Thank you so much, Wendy.
thank you. And our final speaker today, is Andrea Guerrero from Alliance San Diego. She's actually the executive director of Alliance San Diego, and I can see she's calling in from her car. So that's a dedicated person. Thank you, Andrea. And a lot of you know Alliance San Diego for all of the community building work they do, for all the work they do around supporting immigrants and other members of our community. And they also always do a tremendous job around election time with keeping voters informed and getting the vote out. So I will turn it over to you, Andrea.
Wendy, thank you so much for inviting me. And apologies, I'm still on the road. I'm not driving, so
Okay,
all is
good.
well. All is well. Somebody else is driving. But yes, I wanted to share with you all the work that we're going to do. We're going to do coordinated election protection observing. And so we are not associated with a campaign or a partisan effort for that work. We are hoping to get 500 or so volunteers to have two people at each of the 220 or so vote centers on election day for the last hours of the election. And the reason why we want to do that is we want to make sure that we are there to observe, to record and report. So we're going to be observing what does it look like at the end of the day? Are there long lines? Is there any attempt to interfere? This will all be in an effort to have eyes on the election and then complete a short survey that we're going to then compile and share with the registrar of voters. If, for example, we see that some locations had very long lines, then we might recommend to the registrar that they add vote centers or that they add additional locations. We are a little bit concerned that there are 220 vote centers or so, but they only represent voting locations in about 60% of the zip codes in San Diego County. So we know that there were very long lines for the special election, and part of how we can help the registrar understand the distribution of where polling locations should be is by being out there and recording that. So we're going to have a short survey that we're going to ask pairs of election protection observers to complete. And then we will also train them to report on any incidents that they see. Public safety is very important to us, and so we will be advising people not to intervene at all whatsoever, but to report. And so we have a reporting protocol that we want to make sure our folks know about, and that way we are prepared to respond, whatever that looks like. The reality is that we are anticipating some form of election interference, and it might not come on the day of, although it could. It could come in the day of, in the form of intimidation. And in those instances, we will be following all the rules about election observation, but we will be reporting that into a central coordinated hub and sharing that with the registrar. We will be calling on the registrar to take further action if more action is needed. We know that the president has issued an executive order that to deploy his own election integrity folks from the Justice Department out to specific locations, none of which have been named in San Diego County, but in Riverside, LA, Orange, and the surrounding counties. So we don't know what will happen in San Diego County. Hopefully nothing at all, but if it does, we want to be ready. We also are aware of the threat to late mail arriving ballots. And so the day after election, we are calling on the activist community to prepare to respond. It might not happen here in San Diego, but it might happen in another part of California, and we need to have a coordinated response. We're working with sister organizations up and down California to plan for such a response. For example, if this is a musical chair situation, the music could stop at midnight on election day, and there could be an attempt to interfere with late arriving mail ballots, even though under state law, those ballots can arrive up to 7 days after the election. We know that law is under threat from a Supreme Court case that your prior speaker just mentioned, right? So even though there's been no ruling in the Supreme Court case, we are anticipating that folks will try to stop the count, or not stop the count, but stop the registrar from receiving or canvassing those late arrival ballots. So totally agree. You should absolutely vote as early as you can. Don't wait because we also want the decisions in this election to be conclusive as early as possible. That will eliminate the window or the opening for folks to contest the election, right? So if you want to be a part of our election protection program, we invite you to go to our website. Unfortunately, I don't have the link.
I have it.
Oh, you have it. If you could
we'll
share
put it in
with
the chat.
Yeah, if you could share it with everybody, it would be you would be paired up with somebody if you don't already have a buddy coming into the program. 2 people per vote center, and the hours would be roughly 5 to 9, we're saying, just because we don't know when the voting will wrap up at the vote centers. If the voting is done at 8, great. But if there's a line at 8 and then all those people will have the opportunity to vote, it might run longer than that. And again, we will train you. We will make sure that you're prepared for scenarios. There will be no intervention. This will be about observing, recording, completing a short survey so that we have these surveys that we can compile and share with the registrar, and then and then reporting any incidents. We will not be intervening, but we will reporting so that we have eyes on. We are very blessed in San Diego County to have a registrar's office that is, quite frankly, really on it in a way that other registrars are not. And I think, if we're there, we're buttressing the integrity of the election, we're buttressing belief and confidence in that election, and then we're also informing any changes that need to be made going into November. We are exercising a muscle to do election protection work, knowing that come November, we're really going to have to do a lot more of it because of the threat to that election. So better to, we're going to get prepared by being prepared right now. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you so much, Andrea. I think what Alliance is doing and is critically important, and I think a lot of what all of us are looking for. And having the first attempt at the primary to kind of get this set up and work out the kinks, and as you said, exercise the muscle, because certainly in November that's going to be critical. And I saw a question. Will you be coordinating with the state Democratic Party that has hundreds of poll monitors through the state, plus a few hundred attorneys who will be on call for the lead up to Election Day?
So we are running a nonpartisan effort, and we will be working with We Are California, which is a statewide coalition of entities that are engaging in this kind of work. We do share a connection to the Public Rights Project, which is the arm of, it's a nonprofit entity that's going to be handling the legal challenges that come up. We are in relationship with them, so is the Democratic Party, and so are other efforts, right? So we're all sharing attorneys, so to speak, but our effort is very specifically nonpartisan, aimed at buttressing the integrity of the election. And we welcome people from the Democratic Party to be a part of the process, but our organization is nonpartisan, this effort is nonpartisan, and it's just the nature of what we're doing.
Right. Yeah, good. And then Dina was asking, please repeat what Trump's executive order says.
Yeah, so he issued an order. This was recent. This was last week. He is deploying what he's calling election integrity observers to the election. He says he will have them out in all states for the November election, and that right now he will have them out in certain states. In California, he has stated that he will have them out in the counties of Los Angeles, Riverside, Orange, also Kern County. There are a few others he's named. I wouldn't consider that an exhaustive list. I would not be surprised if we didn't get, quote, election integrity observers here in the part of the county where Congressional District 48 race is happening, right? And that we share a contested congressional seat with Riverside. So we want to make sure, for sure, that in that part of the county, we have people who are doing election observing without taking any position in the race. We are concerned about the potential for interference.
Cool. All right. And yeah, from Lowell, are you using the term election protection workers in a generic way or as part of a specific legal brigade to help protect voters who are trying to vote?
Well, you could refer to us as a brigade. Lowell, we are not all going to be lawyers. We do have lawyers who have come forward and volunteered to issue TROs if needed. That's really for the day after. But for the day of, the election protection work is human rights work. It's the work that we see happening all over the world when people are observing the election to make sure that it is fair and that it is free. And again, we'll be eyes on the polling locations, the vote centers. We will be completing a short survey at the end of the election night for each of those locations, and then we will be training people to report incidents to us, and we will be compiling those. We will also be funneling those directly to the Registrar of Voters and also to the Secretary of State and Attorney General as needed. Right. So this is human rights work. You don't have to be an attorney to do it. You do have to have a commitment to our democracy and be prepared to come in a non-partisan outfit to do that work with us.
Cool. Yeah, and then just stressing that it's observing and documenting and not putting your body in
No,
between
no.
in between a jerk and a voter.
Yeah, and we're about to announce trainings for that work, and we will really underscore that we want to be there as peaceful people who are interested in protecting our democracy.
Okay, one final question. The timing, which is sort of towards the end of the day, how did you come to pick that?
Right. So the vote centers, or you have to be in line by 8 p.m. in order to vote, and so we are basing the 5 to 9, and that's going to be flexible depending on people's availability. The pairs who are going to each of the vote centers, it could be from 6 to 9. But what we saw in the special election from last November, where we did not plan to do election observing work, but we were called out to do some of it, and we didn't have an organized operation, so we just went as best we could to about half a dozen locations, and at every single one of them, and this was starting at about 6 o'clock, we saw long lines. We saw people who were being told that that they couldn't vote after 8, which was not true. And there was a lot of misinformation at that time. The poll workers, they didn't have enough poll workers, so they weren't checking the line at 8 o'clock. And there was a bit of confusion at the end. The registrar has really addressed a lot of those concerns already, so we're not anticipating those concerns, but we do have concerns about the length of the lines. We used to have over 1,000 polling locations in San Diego County. Those have been reduced into these vote centers, only 220 of them. And as I said, they only are in 60% of our zip codes, right? So we have concerns that there aren't going to be enough, and that people aren't going to know what to do at the very end. We're going to do some public broadcast messaging about that in the coming days over the radio. But what we most need is election observers to participate in this coordinated way so that we can be compiling data and information that will prepare us for November. And also through this, we're exercising a muscle. We're learning how to be coordinated. We're getting common training, using common language, preparing for incidents, and just getting ready by being ready.
Wonderful. Well, thank you, Andrea, so much for this, for everything Alliance does. I We do have the link for people to sign up to be election observers, and we will get it into the chat and also into our follow-up email that everyone will get after this is over. And I urge everyone to sign up and get that experience so that we can bring our friends in November.
That's right.
because
That's right. This is
we're
a
going to need
practice
more.
run. And
Yes.
yes, we welcome everyone, and we will work with you as soon, we'll be starting to reach out to people who sign up in the coming week to understand, what part of the county that you are in or would like to be in for this work. Um, and we will get ready with a training shortly.
Cool. Cool. Thank you again, Andrea.
Oh, thank you. Take care, everyone.
Take care.